Would you still love me if I was a worm? This question was first asked by Franz Kafka in 1915 in his novella The Metamorphosis, although what he actually asked was, would you still love me if I was a giant ugly bug? When I first read this story, I thought it was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a comedy. The story starts off with Gregor Samsa waking up and realizing he's been transformed into a giant bug. The story is vague about what kind of bug it is, and Kafka himself ordered that no one should depict what it looks like. Usually, I'd find some kind of visual imagery for the story, but in this case, I'm going to respect my husband's wishes and not show you anything. So just imagine Gregor as whatever kind of bug you hate the most. He's generally depicted as a cockroach, but that's not what he is. The kind of bugs I hate the most are CSS bugs. That was a joke for the 2 web developers watching this video. The rest of you can just pretend that made sense. So how does Gregor react to turning into a bug? In a Hollywood movie, he'd probably look in the mirror, rub his eyes, look again, then scream. But in this case, he's just like, oh, I'm a bug now. That's interesting. Anyway, I need to get to work right now or I'm gonna be late. This man is so focused on making it to work, you'd think they're holding his family hostage, or maybe he's just an Amazon employee. Gregor works as a traveling salesman. He hates his job and wants to quit, but he can't because he's the sole provider for his family. He thinks, well, I could call in sick, but does turning into a bug technically count as being sick? After all, I can still walk around, and I feel fine. I don't know, Gregor. Being a disgusting bug might affect your ability to close sales deals, but if you have enough riz, anything is possible. His mom knocks on his door to see why he's so late, then his dad checks in, then his sister checks in. Everyone knows he shouldn't be home this late, but he's like, yeah, don't worry guys, I'll be out in just a second, everything's fine, this is fine. Gregor's goal right now is to put his clothes on, eat breakfast, then get to work. He spends a ton of time trying to get out of bed because he's lying on his back, he has a bunch of tiny legs that he can barely control, and he doesn't have a good way to push himself off. He does some physics calculations and decides to rock himself back and forth to gain momentum. When he's in the middle of this maneuver, his boss shows up to his house to check in on him. What kind of company is this, where your boss shows up to your house if you're late? Doesn't he have an actual job to do besides micromanaging me? I guess not. This gives Gregor the resolve to finally swing himself out of bed, and he lands on the floor and hits his head, but he's alright. Gregor's boss tries to rage bait him out of his room. He's like, by the way, you actually suck at your job and we've been thinking about firing you. Yeah, I'm saying this in front of your whole family, so you better get out here right now. Gregor is desperate to keep his job, so he lets out a long pleading rant to his boss. He says he's sick and he'll open the door soon, and there's no reason to attack him like this. He'll be a little late today, but don't be so harsh. He wants to open the door and see how everyone reacts. If they're horrified, he won't have to explain himself anymore, and if they're calm about it, then he has nothing to worry about. It's like he himself doesn't know if he should be freaking out, or if this is just a normal, everyday occurrence. You know, some days you wake up and you're transformed into a bug. We all have those days, right? He listens for the response to his rant, but it turns out that nobody understands anything he said. He's gone full insect. Never go full insect. They're all really concerned now, so they send for a doctor and a locksmith. Gregor feels better knowing that everyone finally understands if something is wrong with him. He manages to push a chair to the door, grab the key with his mouth, and open the door. Everyone's reactions to seeing him are about what you'd expect. His boss slowly backs away, his mother drops on the floor, his dad starts crying. Gregor then pleads once again with his boss, saying he'll get dressed at once and head straight to work. You have to give it to him. Gregor really is a model employee. While he's saying all this, his boss slowly inches towards the staircase, then runs as fast as he can. Gregor is like, oh no, I need to stop him from leaving and reason with him so I can keep my job. So he runs out of his room and chases his boss, who practically jumps down the stairs to get out of the house. Then his father uses a stick to drive him back into his room. Gregor wakes up from a long nap, and unfortunately, he's still a bug. He finds some food that his sister Greta put out for him, milk and bread. Milk is his favorite drink, or it used to be. Now it tastes disgusting. The next morning, Greta comes in and she's startled by how ugly he is, so she leaves and slams the door. Don't worry, Gregor. We've all been there. She slowly comes back into the room while he hides under the sofa. She takes away the milk, then comes back with a variety of food. There's a full buffet laid out. Greta is the real MVP, bringing every possible food so she can figure out what her brother wants to eat. Gregor finds that he prefers cheese and decaying vegetables. He can't stand the smell of fresh food, like bread. His sister comes back later and turns the key slowly to give him time to hide under the sofa. She sweeps up the leftovers and leaves. This is how they do things now. Gregor is fed twice a day by his sister. No one else comes near his room. He listens at his door for conversations happening around the house, a lot of which have to do with him. The family needs to figure out their whole financial situation since Gregor was the only earner in the household and they have debts to pay. They have leftover money from their father's failed business and a bunch of Gregor's money that they never used. It's a good safety net, but it's not enough to live off of. So they need to bring in income somehow. But his father is old and hasn't worked in a while, his mother has asthma, and his sister is only 17 and has spent most of her life up to this point just hanging around the house and doing nothing. They're not exactly competitive on the job market. One day, about a month into this, Greta comes into the room a little early, and he's not hidden under the sofa, but is staring out the window. She jumps back and slams the door. This surprises Gregor. He didn't realize how repulsive the sight of him was to others. He thought people would be used to him by now, to which I must say, my boy, you're a giant, disgusting bug. If you were in my house, I would have pulled out a shotgun on you on day one. Of course no one wants to see you. Just be happy they're keeping you alive. Now that he realizes this, he goes through the arduous 4 hours of work required to carry a sheet to the sofa, so that when Greta comes in, he can hide himself completely. He was only partially hidden under the sofa before, so he's being more considerate now. His parents don't want to enter the room, so Greta gives them reports on the situation. His mother thinks about visiting, but they tell her she isn't ready. She can't handle the truth. Gregor continues his journey of embracing his inner bug. He's bored of lying around, so he picks up a new hobby of crawling around the walls and ceiling. Gotta get those steps in, keep up the cardio. His thoughtful sister notices the residue on the walls and ceiling and decides to give him more space to crawl by removing furniture from the room. She's really such a great sister. She can't move furniture around by herself, so she asks her mom for help. She goes in first to make sure Gregor is hidden, then brings her mom in to move stuff. They take a break because of how heavy the chest is, and his mother questions whether they should really be doing this. Would he want his room to be totally empty? Aren't we basically showing him that we've given up on his recovery if we let him go full insect? She thinks they should leave everything the same. Gregor snaps out of it and agrees with his mom. He was forgetting that he was human. He shouldn't remove all the memories of his humanity. Everything should stay the same in his room. But Greta disagrees and considers herself an expert on the situation, which is fair. She says they should remove everything except the sofa because Gregor doesn't use any of it. They move the chest out, which Gregor is fine with, but he really doesn't want them to move his writing desk. He's trying to figure out how to communicate this without freaking everyone out, but his mom walks in, so he hides under the sofa again. Me when I try to socialize. As they continue moving things out the room, he gets more annoyed at the situation. They're taking away everything he loves, so he decides to take a stand. He rushes out from under the sofa while they're outside with the writing desk. He runs around, not knowing what to save. He finds a picture on his wall and decides to save that. He covers it entirely, determined to protect it at all costs. As his mother and sister walk towards the room, Greta sees him first and tries to calmly send their mother back without letting her know Gregor is there, but this backfires and their mother sees Gregor on the wall and faints. For the first time since his metamorphosis, Greta directly addresses Gregor and shouts his name in anger. Greta gets some medicine to help their mother, and Gregor wants to help too, so he runs after her. And of course, that doesn't go very well. Gregor, are you serious? To be fair, his brain is a lot smaller now, so it's understandable why he keeps making these 0 IQ plays. Obviously, seeing a giant bug run towards her, Greta freaks out and drops the medicine. Gregor starts panicking and crawling around. Then his father shows up. Daddy's home, and you've been a bad, Bad boy. Greta tells him that Gregor broke loose and mom fainted. His father looks at the situation and interprets things in the worst possible way, assuming that Gregor must have attacked them. Gregor needs to calm his father down before things get bad. He needs a strong legal defense. Your Honor, my client is innocent. The only thing my client is guilty of is walking while bug. But Gregor isn't getting any justice here. He goes to his bedroom door and stands against it, showing that he would go right back into his room if someone would just open the door. This is the first time in a while he's seen his father, and he's had a huge glow up. He used to be a lazy guy, sitting around the couch, barely able to walk or do anything. Now he's well groomed and wearing a fancy blue suit. Someone's been look-smaxing. His dad walks towards him, and Gregor runs away. They run around in circles, then his dad starts throwing apples at him. One of the apples lands in his back, sinks in, and hurts a lot. He falls flat on the floor. His mother rushes to his father to beg for his life, and Gregor falls unconscious. The apple injury sticks with Gregor. Nobody feels like touching him to remove the apple, so his body is permanently damaged. It takes him forever to move anywhere, and he can't crawl on walls anymore. If he couldn't call in sick before, he definitely can now. But on the bright side, his dad finally remembered that Gregor is in fact his son and should be treated like a family member instead of an enemy. So the overall treatment of Gregor actually improved after that incident. His family now opens the door to his bedroom around dinner time so he can be part of their conversation. They've gone from completely ignoring and avoiding him to barely tolerating him at a distance. I consider this an absolute win. Everyone in the family has a job now. His mother works a sewing job, his father works for a bank, and his sister works as a sales girl. Everyone in this family's hustling now. Their metamorphosis from lazy betas to Sigma grindset hustlers is complete. They have a cleaner to help out in the morning and evening, but most of the housework is done by Gregor's mom, in addition to her sewing job. They sell their family ornaments. They also want to leave their current apartment, which is too big and expensive for their current finances, but they don't want to deal with moving Gregor. As they get busier with work, they begin to reduce their attention on Gregor to the bare minimum. Gregor is barely sleeping anymore. Sometimes he's filled with rage at the neglect his family is showing him. His sister isn't being thoughtful with the food anymore because she's too busy. She just shoves in whatever food they have in the morning, then does a quick sweep in the evening to clear it out. She doesn't pay attention to whether the food is actually being eaten. If she did, she'd realize Gregor is hardly eating anything. Without proper cleaning, the room begins to get dirty. Gregor tries to reproach Greta for leaving the room so dirty by standing in a filthy corner when she comes in to draw it to her attention, but she doesn't care anymore. She has things to do. Sorry, Gregor, you're just a bit too high maintenance. Have you considered that you might be the problem? Maybe you should just lower your standards. The family rents out one of the rooms in the apartment to 3 people. These lodgers value cleanliness and order, so there's a bunch of stuff to move around. Gregor's room becomes the ultimate dumping ground for random stuff, so it's getting even filthier and he has less space to move around. The walls are slowly closing in on him. Now that there are other people here, they keep Gregor's door shut during dinner, so he's not part of any conversations anymore. These lodgers are treated like royalty. They're at the head of the dinner table and the family is cooking for them, everything's arranged for them, their every need is taken care of. So basically this family is the opposite of modern landlords. Gregor is jealous that these people get such great food while he's literally starving to death. Do you know the difference between you and them, Gregor? They're paying rent instead of asking for free handouts. Out of nowhere, Greta starts playing the violin in the living room. Gregor is a big fan of his sister's violin playing and was actually planning to take on the huge financial burden of paying for her to go to music school. So this wakes him up. He moves to the living room door and actually sticks his head out. Usually, he would be more considerate about not freaking people out, but he doesn't care anymore. He's covered in filth, so he's looking way worse than usual, but he goes anyway. No one sees him though, they're all listening to the violin. The lodgers don't seem to be enjoying the music because they're a bunch of Drake fans with no taste, but Gregor enjoys it a lot. He crawls further forward. He wants to talk to his sister and tell her he loves the music. The lodgers see him first and shout. Gregor's dad wants to calm them down so he doesn't lose money. His dad and sister get the lodgers' room ready for sleep and send them in. But one of them says because of the conditions of this house, they're going to leave, not pay anything, and sue for damages. And you know, these guys suck, but I would also be kind of mad if I lived in a house with a human-sized bug that wasn't mentioned in the Airbnb description. Gregor stays frozen in place. Then his caring, thoughtful sister snaps and crashes out. She says things can't go on like this. They have to get rid of this giant bug. They've spent a ton of time trying to put up with it. They've done all they can. You see, that creature isn't Gregor. Believing that for so long was our biggest mistake. How could that thing be Gregor? If it were Gregor, he would have left a long time ago to stop bothering us. Instead, that creature is here torturing us and ruining our lives. It obviously wants the whole place to itself. Greta has a point. I mean, come on guys. We all know it's not possible for a human to randomly turn into a bug, so that can't be Gregor now, can it? Why did we ever think that? Anyway, we should get rid of that thing. Gregor starts moving again, and everyone freaks out. Gregor is just trying to get back to his room though, which takes a while because of how injured he is. As soon as he gets to the room, it's shut and locked. Gregor realizes he can't even move anymore. His body's aching, but the pain is going down. He lays there until he breathes his last breath. The next morning, the cleaning lady sees Gregor lying there, pokes him with a broom, and realizes he's dead. She wakes the whole family to let them know. The family goes to their bedroom to talk. The lodgers come out of their room demanding breakfast. Then the whole family comes out looking as if they'd been crying. Are those tears of sadness or tears of joy? The dad tells the lodgers to get the hell out. Now that their biggest problem is solved, they have a newfound confidence. They all take a break from work that day. The cleaning lady tells them she's already handled getting rid of the dead bug. They all leave the apartment together, something they haven't done in months, and they take a trip to the countryside. As they think about their prospects for the future, they realize things are actually pretty good. They all have good jobs, they can now move to a cheaper house, and their daughter is really hot and should be able to find a good husband soon. Everything is great. And they lived happily ever after, the end. This is one of those stories that has 1,000 different interpretations. You can interpret it to mean anything you want. Some people will say it's extremely obvious that Gregor doesn't actually turn into a bug, and it's just about how he views himself. And others will say it's extremely obvious that he does in fact turn into a literal bug. I could talk about how this story is about depression, burnout, being disabled, existential loneliness, Kafka's daddy issues, stuff like that, which are the more popular interpretations. But I woke up this morning and realized I have free will, so instead I'll talk about how Gregor is actually the villain and Greta is the hero. Please don't take this too seriously. Gregor relishes the opportunity to make his entire family dependent on him. He gets a job to provide for them, but he isn't doing this out of duty or selflessness. He's doing it so he can get their praise. He wants them to need him. He wants the validation. He doesn't care about them at all. He just wants their dependence to give him the feeling that his life is worth something. Then, by the grace of God, he gets transformed into the parasite that he really is, and the roles reverse. Everyone's providing for him now. How do you like that, Gregor? Suddenly, his incapable, weak father is hustling at a bank job, his sick mom with asthma is hustling at a sewing job, and his lazy little sister with no experience is hustling at a sales job. They're all livelier than ever, living their best lives, now that he isn't there to create a toxic dynamic of dependency, where he forces everyone else to be unemployed and imprisons them in the confines of their apartment. Once Gregor turned into a bug, he should have left the house to go do his own thing. He should have known that he's an unnecessary burden, but he stays there as if completely oblivious to the fact that he's a bug. He's not doing anyone any favors by staying home. What he should have done is join the circus, where his talents would actually be useful, and spend some time soul-searching, so he could find a sense of self-worth that's not dependent on the validation of others. He could fly away whenever he wants, or just sprint down the stairs, but he doesn't do that. He wants to send Greta to music school, but is that what Greta really wants? Or is that what Gregor wants for her? Greta has had the true metamorphosis, going from a quiet girl who sits around the house doing nothing to a hyper-capitalist Sigma girl boss. Greta is going to be an even better salesperson than Gregor could ever dream of. This is her true calling that Gregor was holding her back from. Greta cared for Gregor long enough for him to get his new life together and go do something useful, but instead he sat around doing nothing to improve his condition. With Gregor out of the picture, everyone in the family is significantly better off. We need to do something other than sitting around all day to have meaning in our lives. This is the great life that Gregor held them back from, so he could selfishly give his own life meaning. The moral of the story is that if someone you know and love turns into a bug, you should just kill them. Would I still love you if you were a worm? No. My point here was to give a really unusual interpretation of the story. It was meant to be a bit silly. Don't cite this video for your high school essay, please. You'll probably fail. Just say it's about depression or something. They don't want you to think for yourself. You don't have free will. Only I